Hey, folks, it's Clint Powell. You know what? Sales training is not supposed to be that complicated. It needs to be consistent, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Good sales training, once it's implemented consistently, is supposed to do a few things. It can remind us. Usually, if you've been in sales for any length of time, you'll notice your success and failures. There's ups and downs. You go through cycles. A lot of times, good sales training is simply there to remind you of some stuff you either maybe have forgotten to do, you haven't done in a while, or to start thinking about something. It can teach and it can review some basics. I've been in sales for over 30 years, and guess what? I still learn stuff all the time. Even if it's something that's basic and kind of a review for me, if I hear it from a different perspective or if it's applied a different way, I can still learn. Another thing sales training can do is it can encourage us to start thinking. So you go to something or you tune into something, you hear it, and you kind of go, that's not really for me, but what about this? It gets your brain going. Good sales training will actually give you some stuff, and it may not be for you exactly, but it could lead to you thinking about some new things for yourself. And last, it creates some pause. I found one of the things that we do in today's world is we stay really busy. Have you noticed that? I don't think I'm unique in thinking that. And here's what I'm talking about. When you go to a meeting, a lot of times you have people checking their phones, they're looking around, they're doing this a lot. Yep. Even on sales training, we mute the mics, or we'll mute the camera, or we'll move the camera. We find ways to move ourselves out of the training or out of what we're supposed to be doing and go do other stuff. Now, sometimes that's necessary. But a lot of times it's just because we are so uncomfortable in focusing in on the moment. And I've said this all the time. It's like when you throw feathers in the air, when you watch them settle, that's the way it is with our thoughts a lot of times. If we can learn to consistently be in the moment of training, or be in the moment when I'm talking to this person in a relationship or in a sales moment, if we can learn to let the thoughts go, they will settle. And then what's left is what we're supposed to be focused on. So sales training is not supposed to be that complicated. And today I want to walk through numbers. I like to consider myself a people person. If you're in sales, a lot of times you are. I do like looking at my numbers when I was in sales, and I love looking at numbers for other sales reps when I was a sales manager. But sometimes we may forget that looking at our numbers can actually contribute to some motivation. It can inspire us. And I'll show you what I mean by that. And I'm in no way a numbers guru. I just know that if you are watching your numbers, it can help keep you motivated, avoid some burnout. So let's look at it. Let's say you have $100,000 in sales in whatever time period you measure it in. From starting this point to ending at this point, I have $100,000 in sales and I have 10 clients. What does that mean? It means each client has a value of $10,000. It's important to know that. Somebody goes, hey, how much is a client worth to you? He goes, my clients, they're worth $10,000 a pop. It's important. Now, what does that even mean, though? How do you get to that? What is behind that number? So let's look at it a little different. So now I know how much my clients are worth, but what is my ask to close ratio? Now, when I talk about asking for the money, I am not talking about simply sending some information out and saying things like, hey, holler back at me if you like this. That's not asking for business. I consider an ask a hard ask. I'm either whatever mode of communication that I'm choosing, but I've asked you to move forward. Can we sign this contract? Is this something we can start? Can we start this date? I'm asking you to do business with me. That is a hard ask. So inside that $100,000 and 10 clients, I start looking at the numbers a little more, and I've realized in order to get to that 10 closed clients, I had to hard ask 30 people. That's a closing rate of 33%. All right. And I'm going to kind of tie this all up later to show you where your motivation can come from and how easy it is to give yourself a raise. So now I know what my client's worth. I know what my closing percentage is, but now let's dive a little deeper. What is my lead engagement to the opportunities or the hard ask? So lead. These are lead engagements leads that I've spoken with. So there's leads that just kind of fall by the wayside. I don't follow up with them. There was no real back and forth. I got the lead. Hey, how you doing? I send them the email. I make the phone call. There's no response. To me, that's not engagement. That's a lead, but it's not engagement. Engagement to me is when I have actually had some correspondence with the client. We started the process. It is a little bit of back and forth. That is a lead engagement. Now, it's important to realize how many of those engaged leads it takes me to get to those 30 hard asks. Remember, I've got 10 clients. It took me 30 hard asks to get to those 10 clients. Well, how many engaged leads did it take me to get to the hard ask? So just for the purposes of this, and I'm not very good at math, so I'm trying to keep it simple. I had 100 lead engagements to get to 30 asks. All right, well, that's 30%. So my lead engagements to hard ask closing ratio, that's a different close ratio, but it is a closing ratio, is 30%. So why is that important? Here's where we're gonna wrap this in one big bow, I hope. Here's why it's important. Summary, what does it mean, and mindset. So your summary is I have 10 clients that equals $100,000 total sales. That means each client's worth $10,000. My closing rate, which means I ask for the business and I get the business, is 33%. My lead engagements to ask opportunities. They just go from I'm engaged with them as a lead. Now I've navigated that process. I'm asking for the business. That closing rate's 30%. The reason that to know these junctures, to know these numbers, where it goes from just a regular lead to now I'm engaged, and then it goes from a lead engagement to now I have the opportunity to ask, and it goes from asking to closing. Not only are along the journey should I be, pre-closing, pre-qualifying, making sure I'm getting agreement along the way to make the final ask for business kind of a no-brainer, right? But I also, from a business standpoint, can find out where I can give myself a raise. I look at these intersections as joints of the body where things can move. So anytime I have this, it's going from, I've got the opportunity to go from one category to the next. That's a joint. And if I hold that up and look at it and evaluate it and I say, okay, this is a lead and now I'm engaging with it. Well, how did I get from just a regular lead to engaging? Inside that, where those two meet, there are things that I can control. My language, my script, my response time, my attentive, my questions. How am I doing right there? Then it goes from lead engagement to I'm trying to get it to where I can ask them for the business. Well, when that meets, I can hold that up. Okay, now that I have gone from lead engagement to now I'm getting ready to ask them for the business, what is my language again? What's my script? What do I have a process? The reason it is important for you to look at each one of these engagements, each one of these joints where it goes from one to the other, inside there is where you will find the opportunity to give yourself a raise. It's not going to be solely dependent on the market or the company you work for. As a salesperson, it's vital for us to figure out what we can control to make to change the path of our career, to give ourselves a raise. Because the company can only do so much. The market's going to do what the market does, but what are you doing? And by knowing your numbers, you can go, okay, wait a minute. If I'm closing 33% of my ask, then I need to have more opportunities. Maybe I have found that I need to have 50% closing rate from my lead engagements to the ask opportunities. So if I increase that by just a small margin, I will, just by the numbers, tell me, I will give myself a raise. The other thing, by knowing your numbers, and if you really evaluate the part you play inside this, not the clients, not the market, not the company, your part, then it also you will see that it doesn't take drastic change to make big differences. Small changes can make big differences over time. By the way, that's also true going the other way. You don't have to have a bunch of bad habits. But if you have a few bad habits, and they happen to be important habits, then over time, you'll notice some big changes and they won't be going the direction you want. So it's important that if you want to give yourself a raise, to get inside these numbers and start looking at them and find out what you can do. Now, what comes next is all about the mindset. Let me see if I can find this last slide and pull it up here. Now, No engagement is wasted if you have the right mindset. I'm going to walk through this one more time and show you what I mean. Because once you realize inside the numbers, that's part of the process. Then you realize that every no, every rejection, every air quote, wasted Saturday, every wasted sales call on a Monday morning, it's not really wasted because it all has a place inside the number story. So if you have $100,000 in sales, 10 clients, it's 10,000 per value per closed deal. And I had 30 hard asks. Then each ask, whether it's successful or not, has an assigned value of $3,300. It's not wasted. Every no has a value then. So it's easier to stay motivated. It's easier to take the no with a grain of salt when you go, hey, I just made $3,300 because it's part of the process. And I had to have 100 lead engagements to get to the 30 hard ask. Well, guess what that means? No matter if it gets to the hard ask or not, if I've engaged with the lead, then that lead engagement now has an assigned value of $1,000. It's a mindset. If I do my job and I look up and I say, okay, that's a no, but that no has an assigned value of $1,000. Maybe I do get to ask them. Well, that ask has an assigned value of $3,300. Well, it closed. Now it has a value of $10,000. So that means $1,000 becomes, it's part of the number story. It's part of your process. And no longer do you have to look at it as rejection or no or a bad day. No, I had 3 rejections today from the lead engagements. I could not get them to the ask. That was $3,000 you made that day. I know it's kind of you have to play little tricks on your brain, but it's true. The numbers tell you it's true. So with that being said, use your numbers, learn your numbers, the basics of them. Take the time to evaluate those joints, those intersections where they go from one thing to the next, right? From the lead to the ask and from the ask to the close. Find those opportunities and then play the tricks on your brain and learn to say, every time I have an engagement with a client, it's $1,000. No matter what they say, it's $1,000. But you can't do that unless you're taking the time to figure out your numbers. Hope you have a great day. It's not supposed to be complicated. It just takes a little time, a little thought. Bye, everybody.